everyone, this is Finance 101, Excel in Excel, and we are now in module number 4. In this video tutorial, I'm going to be going over our textbook project for this model. Now, in our previous models, we studied one of the most important and powerful tools in Excel, which is its wide variety of functions, right? Formulas and functions. In this module, we're going to be adding some financial functions. Specifically, we'll learn the payment function, which will allow you to calculate the payment on any kind of loan, a mortgage payment, a student loan, a car loan, etc. We're also going to talk about the present values and future value formulas, which will allow us to compute present values or future value of our investments. So for example, if we deposit a certain amount of money today, how much will we have in our bank account a certain number of years from now, or the value of our retirement investments or savings, etc. Also in this chapter, we're going to be talking about amortization schedules. So we're going to learn how to build them, and these tables or schedules will show you what part of each of your payments in your loan will be interest payments and what part is actually reducing the principal, right, or paying off your debt. Another powerful aspect of Excel is the ability to answer what-if questions. And we talked about this in our previous module. We'll learn how to analyze our data by using the recalculation feature in Excel, right? When we would change a variable in our table and Excel will automatically recalculate our answers. We also explore the goal-seek function. In this module, we're going to introduce a new what-if analysis tool called a data table. So what is a data table? It's simply a range of cells where we can show our resulting values for our output variables when we change one or more of our inputs. So the goal of using a data table is to automate our data analysis and also to nicely organize our results in Excel. In terms of formatting, we're going to be learning new features, new ways to format our spreadsheets, new printing options, such as printing a certain area in your worksheet or a certain range of cells in your worksheet. Also in this module, we will be introducing cell protections, which is a really useful option when we're working with teams and we have other users looking at our data. Cell protection will allow us to lock in certain variables or cells to prevent them from being accidentally deleted or modified, right? So as I said, this is really useful when you are working with team members and you want to make sure that everybody has access to your spreadsheet, but that some data does not get accidentally modified or deleted. So let's go ahead and get started with our project. In this project, we're going to be building this workbook that you see in figure 4.1 in your textbook. Cranford Credit Union is a company that provides mortgages or loans on homes or other types of properties. And the Chief Financial Officer of the credit union has asked you to build a workbook that both loan officers and customers can use to calculate mortgage payments, also see what the different monthly payments would be under different interest rates, and also a section to review the amortization schedule. So as you can see in this picture, those are the three main sections. We have the mortgage payment calculator on the top left corner of the worksheet, then items such as the monthly payment, the total interest paid, and the total cost of the loan under different interest rates from 3 to 4.25%. And then on the right hand side, we have the amortization schedule section. One thing or requirement of this workbook is that we want to protect some cells so that the users of the workbook are not accidentally modifying or deleting some of these formulas, except for, of course, a few variables such as the item name, the price, the down payment on the loan, the interest rate, of course, and also the term or maturity of that loan, right? We're going to keep those flexible so that the users can change them and see what happens to the results. So let's go ahead and take a look at our requirements document. Make sure that you explore this document and review it carefully. Figure 4.2, as it will tell you our sources of data and the different calculations that you will need to include in your worksheet. It is also a really good idea to look at the sketch, in this case figure 4.3. This will show you what your output will need to look like when you have completed your project. So before you get started, make sure that you review those documents. Now let's go ahead and get started with our worksheet. So step 1 says we're going to apply the droplet theme to the workbook. In order to apply a theme, we'll go to the page layout tab across the top, And if you go to the far left, you'll see that icon that says themes. Click on that arrow to display the gallery with the different themes and select the desired theme, in this case, droplet. So just click on it, and this of course will adjust the font size, type, and the different colors that we'll be using in our worksheet to have this specific droplet theme. All right, next we're going to start building our mortgage payment calculator section, the top left corner of our workbook. And we need to start by entering our title and the row titles. So step 1 says select cell C3. Now, why C3? Well, we want to leave 2 rows above this entry and 2 columns to the left, just so that we can have a border around our workbook. And this is just a specific preference or requirement of this worksheet. So then type mortgage payment calculator. And then we're going to press enter. The next step says select the range C3 to F3. So C3 to F3. And we're going to merge and center that entry. So in order to do that, we go to the Home tab in the alignment group. And then this icon here on the far left is called Merge and Center. All right, so that creates just one big cell, and we're centering the text in the center, of course, of that cell. Step number 3, click the Cell Styles button in the Home tab Styles group. So go to Home. In the Styles group, we want to click on Cell Styles, and we want to select the Title Cell Style. All right, so Title. So that, as you can see, increases the font and also changes the color. Then we're going to click the middle align button, which is also in the Home tab in the alignment group. We want to vertically center this text. So notice here in the alignment group, you have 2 options to center. The one on the top, if I hover my mouse over it, it says middle align, and the other one, the one below it, is center, right? Center will center the text horizontally. The middle align is what allows us to center it vertically, right? And that's what we're asked to use in this case, the middle align. All right, so there we go. Then step 5 says select cell C4. So then type date as the row title, and then press tab. So press the tab key to move on to the right. Now we have selected cell D4, and we're going to type equals, the equal sign, now, open parentheses, close parentheses. Next, we're going to click enter. So when we do that, it will display today's date, right? We're gonna right click on that cell D4, we're gonna format it, right, with the desired date format. So right click on it, and here you will see a drop down menu displayed. We're gonna go to format cells. Make sure that you are on the number tab. It should be the first one on the left. So I'm on that tab, and then we're gonna select date, click on date. And the specific format that we're asked to use is the one that says 14-March-2012. So scroll down to find that specific format. All right, it is the very last one for me. So 14-MAR for March 2012. So a 4-digit date. Click on OK. All right, and there we go. We have our date. Of course, this is going to be different for all of you depending on which day you're doing this, but that has formatted our date. All right, click OK. We did that. So now we're going to start entering text on the indicated cells. Follow the next table on your textbook to enter text on specific cells. So cell C5, we're going to enter the word item, press enter. Cell C6, the word price. C7, down payment. And we just want to enter the word down, PYMT. We're going to abbreviate that, period. C8, we're going to enter the text loan amount. Make sure that you capitalize the L and the A. And then we're going to move to column E. On E4, we're going to enter our rate. Enter. On E5, term. Then monthly payment. On cell E6. And then next down, C7, total interest. And then finally on E8, we want total cost. Next, we're going to adjust the height of our rows and the width of our columns. Specifically, we want to work on reducing the size of columns A and B, as we're going to use them as a separator between the left-hand side of our worksheet and the first column in our calculator. We're also going to do the same with the first two rows. We're going to reduce their height just to make them a separator. And of course, as you can see, some of the columns, like column C, we need to make that wider as some of the text does not fit in. Also, row 3, where we have the text mortgage payment calculator, is definitely too small. I can barely see the text, so I'm going to increase that size as well. So let's go ahead and follow the steps. Number 1 says click column heading A, and we're going to drag it through column B to select both columns. And then we're going to position the pointer on the right-hand side of column B and drag it until we see the screen tip indicating a width of 0.85. So I'm just going to drag it. Remember, we're trying to reduce it. Now, here's when it comes, sometimes it's really hard to find the specific width that is required. And I'll show you in just a second how to do it if you're not able to find the specific size. All right, so 0.88 was as close as I could get. I don't have very good polls to find to move the mouse and make that the exact number that I need. So an alternative is to just highlight those columns, right click on them, go ahead to press column width and just type in the number. So we want 0.85 and then press OK. All right, so that's just a lot easier, typing in the number that you need instead of trying to move that mouse specifically where you want it to be. Number 2, we want to position the pointer to the right boundary of column heading C. So click on column C. Let's go ahead and position that pointer again, and we want to expand this one to a width of 12. All right, so this one is an exact number. I may be able to do it, but if not, we know that we can always adjust it manually. Oops. I almost had it. There we go. All right, 12. And step 3, we're going to click columns heading D and then drag it all the way to columns E and F. So we want to do those 3 columns together, D, E, and F. And we want to adjust this to a width of 16. I'm just going to do it right click. As you can tell, I'm not very good at adjusting that pointer to the exact width, so I'm just going to type it in. All right, so we want 16. And then remember here that if you see a number for pixels in parentheses, you may not be able to match that number exactly. The number in parentheses, I mean, if you have a different resolution. At the beginning of the chapter, you should have a note in your textbook that tells you which resolution you should have in order to match those numbers immediately. So you want 1366 by 768. That's the desired resolution, and you can just change that on your screen. I have something slightly different, as I've mentioned in previous modules, just because I need to maximize the size of my screen so you all can see it in my video tutorials. All right, so click OK, and then we're going to click on row heading 1 and 2. So we're going to select both of them, and here we want a height of 8.25. So same way, you can drag that pointer to the desired width or height in this case, or just right click, and this time we want to click on row height, and we want 8.25. Click OK. All right, so as you can see now, we are using those columns as separators, and that's a very common strategy. Step 5 says just select an empty cell to deselect the selected rows. So I'm somewhere else, so I've deselected those rows. Next, let's go ahead and change the tab name. Step 1, double click on that sheet 1. So just double click. When you'll see it go gray, you'll be able to delete that or just type something new. And we want to type mortgage payment calculator. All right, press enter. Oh, and I see that I've got a typo there, an extra 8. So go ahead and I double click on it, just fix that typo. And there we go, mortgage payment calculator. All right, always check your spelling to make sure that you haven't, you don't have a typo in your writing, just like I did. Step 2, let's go ahead and save our work. So file, and just save it exactly where you have it. If you had already chosen a location, then all you have to do is press file, save. If not, make sure that you choose a location that you can remember. All right, so next we're gonna start learning how to create cell names. This feature is really useful because it allows you to assign a particular name to either a cell or a range of cells. And then we can use those names, we can refer them in our formulas, right? So typically when we're entering a formula in Excel, we refer to cells with a letter and a number, right? For example, A1 means column A, row 1. But to make our formulas easier to read, we can instead use names for those cells or range of cells. So we're gonna see how to do that, but there's a few steps that we need to complete first in order to finish our mortgage payment calculator, and then we'll start naming some of those cells. All right, so step 1 says select the range D6 and D8. We're gonna format some of these cells, and notice we don't have values in them yet, and that's okay, right? In the past, we've learned to enter values and then format them. You can also do it the other way around. So cell D6 to D8, and these are our main calculator variables. And then we're gonna hold control because we need to select non-adjacent range of cells, F6 to F8. All right, so once I have those two ranges selected, we want to right click, and that will display the shortcut menu. We want to format those cells, and what we're trying to do here is to assign a currency format, right? So make sure that you're on the first tab and the number tab, click on currency, and then the instruction says in the categories list, check or select the fourth format. So we want 1234.10 in negative, with a negative, and in red. So the fourth format in that currency category list. All right, click OK. So as you can see, nothing changed, but when we enter numbers in there, we are going to have that selected format. All right, so we are done. We can now go ahead and start entering our loan data. So select cells D5, and here we're going to be entering values for our main 5 variables for our loan, which is the item name, the price, the down payment, and also the interest rate on the loan and the term of that loan, which is the length of time in which the loan will be paid out. So let's go ahead and enter cell D5. We want to type house. That is the name of the item. And we want to click on the enter button in the formula bar. So we're still going to be in that cell D5. We want to format it. We want to align it to the right. So in the home tab, alignment group, click on align right. All right, that will move the text to the right hand side. And then step 3, select D6, cell D6, and enter 519000 for the price of the house. Click enter to move to the next cell. Did you see what happened there? I entered that number just as a number, but Excel immediately put on a $sign on it and 2 decimal places because that is the currency format. For cell D7, the down payment, we're going to enter 115000, so 115,000, and again, it's immediately formatted. And then we need cell F4 for the interest rate. We need to enter 3.875 and then percent. So be sure to put that percentage sign. All right, click enter. Now, as you can see, that gave me only 2 decimal places because when I type in the percentage sign, Excel immediately assumes that I want the percent format, and that is with 2 decimal places by default in Excel. So if I want to display another decimal place, which is what the instructions are asking me to do, I can go to the number group again in the home tab and click on increase decimal. So the one with the arrow pointing left is to increase decimal. Every time you click it, you'll get an additional decimal place, right? You will just make that additional decimal place visible. So we want to see 3.875, so we're good. Select cell F4 if necessary, we're still there, and then increase the decimal place. Oh, we've done that step already, step 6. So we're in step number 7. It says select cell F5, so I'm going to press enter to move to the next cell, F5. And here we want to enter the number 15 for the term of our loan, right? As I said, is the period over which the loan will be paid back. So 15 years. All right, so our next step is to create some names for some of the row titles that we have in our worksheet. So step 1 says select the range C6 to D8. So notice that I'm going to highlight just the row titles and also the values. So C6 to D8. It's a matrix, right? And then we want to go to the Formulas tab and go to Create from Selection. Here we want to make sure that the box that says left column is selected. That means that Excel is going to grab the names on the left column of our selection as the names of those cells, right? And the values on column D will be the cells that we are assigning names to. So let's go ahead and click OK. All right, you can't see that yet, but we're about to see how those names were assigned once we start using formulas that refer to those cell names. All right, next we're going to do the same for the next set of row titles. So we want to select E4 to F8. All right, so our second set of inputs all the way from the rate to the total cost. And notice that I'm selecting that matrix again. And we're going to do the same thing. So go to the Formulas tab, Create from Selection, and make sure that that left column box is marked. So click OK. All right, so press anywhere to deselect that selection. And now we're ready to start using these cell names with formulas. All right, so step 1 says select cell D8. We're going to calculate our loan amount. All right, so here what I could do is just use regular cell references like I've been doing before. I could press, so don't do this just yet. I'm going to demonstrate how we were doing it in the past and the new way in which we're learning to do this. So I'm going to press the equal sign. The loan amount would be equal to the price of this house. So I would click on cell D6 minus the down payment, right? And I would click on that down payment. All right, as you can see, when I did that, I got the names of those variables already because I've named them. Before, I would have entered or typed in D6 minus D7, right? But now because I've already named those cells, Excel immediately displays the name of those cells. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, and I'm gonna show you another way of entering. So if I press the equal sign, I could just type the letter P, and as you can see here, this is going to display all the functions that start with P, and then you'll see my variable price there, right? You can just double click on it, press the minus sign, and then the next variable is down payment. I can just type the first letter D. Excel again will display all their available functions that start with the letter D. I can scroll down on that menu, and then I will see my variable name down payment. You see that it looks exactly different. It doesn't have, sorry, it doesn't look exactly the same. It doesn't have that FX symbol for function, but instead it looks like a specific cell on a spreadsheet. So just double click, and then we get the same formula, right, that I had done earlier by clicking on those particular cells. All right, so we're just gonna press enter, and as you can see now, our loan amount is calculated. So I'm gonna check 404,000. That's perfect. It looks like I have the correct answer. All right, our next step is to calculate the monthly payment. So I'm gonna select cell F6 because that's where we're gonna enter our monthly payment. Now, when we calculate the payment function, we're gonna be using 3 arguments. The arguments are the variables that we put in parentheses in that formula. So if I were to type equal sign and then PMT for the payment function, I'm gonna type open parentheses. As you can see there in the screen tip, I can see the arguments within that parentheses. So the first variable is always going to be rate for the interest rate. Now here we're going to have to be really careful because the interest rate that we have on cell F4, 3.875%, is an annual rate. That's usually how financial institutions quote their rates, as an APR, an annual percentage rate. So they're in annual terms, right, for the whole year. But this loan has monthly payments, right? So we have to make sure that all our variables are consistent. So when I enter the rate, I'm going to enter it as a monthly rate. And in order to do that, it's actually very simple. We just divide it by 12, right? If 3.875 is the interest for the entire year, I'm going to divide it by 12 to make that a monthly interest rate. Our next variable is NPER. That will be the number of periods. Here we have to make that conversion again. My term for the loan that I have entered on cell F5 is 15 years, but that's number of years. I need to convert that to a number of months. How do I do that? By simply multiplying times 12. So note that this time I'm going to multiply times 12, right? I want to make that number bigger because it's months, not years. And then we're going to type comma, and then the last part, present value in this function, will be the loan amount, right? The amount borrowed. We don't have to worry about the other inputs, the other arguments that are in that function. FB and type are not variables that we need to use for this particular type of example. All right, so let's go ahead and calculate it with the numbers that we're given. So we're on cell F6. If you haven't done this yet, go ahead and delete this. Oh, one more thing that I needed to mention is that when we calculate the payment, as in many other financial functions in Excel, Excel is going to return a negative number because Excel realizes that it's a debit, an outflow of cash for you. You're going to have to make that payment on the loan. So it's going to return a negative amount. We don't want to have a negative amount in our worksheet. To solve that problem, instead of typing the equal sign and then PMT like I had done earlier, I could just go ahead and press minus and then type PMT. Right? So I'm going to type parentheses, and now I can start entering my inputs, right? So all I did was type minus the negative sign and then the name of the function PMT instead of the equal sign. And this will give me a positive value, so I don't have to adjust it later. All right, so we want to enter the interest rate and divide it by 12, right? I could click on cell F4, or I could type in rate, right? As you can see, that is the name that we assigned to that cell, and just type the divided symbol by 12. We're gonna type comma to move on to the next argument. The next argument is the number of periods. So we call that term, and we're gonna multiply it times 12. So 12 times, and then type term, and then comma, and our last argument is the loan amount. So that is on cell D8, but again, we can just type our cell name. So I'm gonna type loan. Now notice here, I can just double click since Excel is suggesting that I can double click on it. But one thing that I wanted to mention is that cell names cannot have spaces. Our variable name in that row title says loan space amount. But when it comes to cell names, Excel would assign it a name equal to loan underscore amount, right? Periods and underscores are totally fine in cell names. They can just not be at the beginning. A cell name cannot start with a period or with an underscore, right? So either type it in or just double click on there. We have loan amount, and then just press enter, right? Excel even puts that closing parentheses for you. All right, so we get a loan payment of $2,963.10. I'm gonna check, and it looks like we did it right. We got the right number, right? There are several other financial functions, so be sure to explore. There's a future value function, present value function. Be sure to explore some of those in the financial category. All right, next we're going to estimate or calculate our last two variables, total interest and total cost. So the total interest is the total amount of interest that you will pay over the life of that loan. And that's really what the bank or financial institution that's lending you the money will make, right? That's their gross profit. So in order to estimate this total interest, we are simply going to take our monthly payment, multiply it by the number of payments that you'll have to make, and then we'll subtract the amount that you borrow, right? That's going to give you that additional amount of interest that you paid above the amount that you borrowed, right? And then to calculate the total cost, this is what's going to cost you, the borrower, to get this loan, right? So it should be the price of the house plus the total amount of interest that you pay on the loan. So let's go ahead and make our calculations. So step one, we are selecting cells F7. That's where we're going to enter our total interest. And using the keyboard, we're going to enter the following formula. Press the equal sign. So we want the number of payments, which is going to be 12 for 12 months, times the term, right? So type term, and that's giving me the number of months, and I'm going to multiply times my monthly payment. Again, I can just use cell names because I also already named those cells, right? So I can start typing monthly payment. I see it there. I'm just going to double click on it so I don't have to type the whole thing, right? We're all about making our life easy and saving time, right? Making our work efficient. All right, so we have 12 months times 15, right? The number of years, that gives me the total number of payments times my monthly payment. And then from here, I'm going to subtract my loan amount. There it is. I'm going to double click on it. All right, perfect. So that's my formula, and I'm just going to click enter. So we get $129,357.22. Excellent. The last one, total cost. All right, so for this one, we're in cell F8, where we're going to type in the formula for our total cost. And as I said, this is the total cost for the borrower, right? If you're borrowing or getting this loan, the total cost for you will be the price of the item that you bought plus the total interest that you had to pay. So we're going to enter the equal sign and start typing price. There it is. Double click on it. And we're going to add, so plus our total interest. So start typing total interest. There it is. And I'm just going to double click on it. All right, so double checking. My formula is price plus total interest. Looks good. Press enter. And our answer should be $648,357.22. All right, excellent. So we've completed our main calculator, the first part of our worksheet. Now let's go ahead and experiment with this calculator and see if it works. So here we have a new example. It says, assume you want to purchase a condominium for $200,000. You have $50,000 for a down payment, and you want to get a loan for a term of 10 years. Cranford Credit Union currently is charging a rate of 4.125% interest on this 10-year loan. So we're gonna follow these steps to recalculate our loan data, all right? So we're gonna enter in cell D5 the word condominium. Ooh, that's hard to type. Condominium. There we go. And then under price, we want $200,000. And the down payment, we're assuming $50,000. So notice how my numbers are all changing already, right? My whole spreadsheet is automated. That's the great thing about Excel. I don't have to recalculate this loan payment or the total interest or the total cost. Everything is automatically calculated. All right, and then we need to change our interest rate on cell F5 to an interest rate of 4.125%. So 4.125. Press enter. All right, and I think now it all looks good. We have all the new inputs. So let's make sure that our calculations are correct. Loan amount, $150,000. Our monthly payment, oh, I need to change the term, right? I missed that. So term should be 10 years. Let's change it from 15 to 10. All right, now it looks good. So we have a monthly payment of $1,527.6. Total interest, $33,312.49. And total cost $233,312.49. Perfect. So this was just a little experiment that we did. So we were using new inputs, and we can see that our data, our loan data, was automatically calculated and updated. Let's go back to the original numbers, right? Because we're going to keep working with the same loan example. All right, so I'm going to type house again, and then the price was $519,000. The down payment is $115,000, and we have an interest rate of 3.875, and the term is 15. All right, let's make sure that our values are back to the original values. Quickly check your loan amount, $404,000, and your total cost, $648,357.22. All right, we went back to normal. We are back to our original inputs. All right, so next we're going to learn how to use a data table to analyze our worksheet data. So I've already shown you how if I change the value of one of my inputs, for example, the interest rate, to different levels, Excel will automatically change and update the results from my output variables, right? In our example, we have 3 output variables: the monthly payment, the total interest, and the total cost. But what if I wanted to see the results for these 3 variables at varying levels of interest rates? Well, I could do them one by one, experiment with different levels of interest rates, and try to remember those values or writing them down. But that would be very inefficient, right? A much better way to do this is by using what we call a data table, right? So what is a data table? It's just going to be a range of cells where Excel is going to show us the values for our outputs under varying levels of our input variable, right? In this case, the interest rate. Now, we can enter a data table anywhere in our worksheet where we have a blank space, and we can enter as many data tables as we want. In our example, we're going to be working with what it's called a one input or one variable data table, as we're only going to be moving one input, right? The interest rate. So let's go ahead and get started. This data table is really going to allow us to organize nicely our results, our inputs, and really present the answers to our what if questions in a very organized manner. So our first step in constructing this data table is to enter a title for the data table and of course the column titles. So step 1 says select cell C9, and then we're going to type varying interest rate schedule. All right, so that is my data table section title. Step 2 select cell C3, and then click the Format Painter button in the Home tab in the Clipboard group. So if you go to Home tab here in the Clipboard section, we're gonna click on that Format Painter button. This will allow me to copy the format of cell C3 where I have my title of the mortgage payment calculator to my new data table title. So just click on it, and then we're gonna click on the cell to which we want to copy that format to, which is C9. All right, so as you can see, it immediately updated with that same format. Next, step 3, we're gonna type rate in cell C10. So make sure you click on cell C10, type rate, and then monthly payment in cell D10, so move to the right. In cell D10, and then total interest in E10. And then in the last one, cell F10, we're going to enter total cost. All right. So we are done with step number 3. Next, it says select the range C10 to F10. So all those titles that we just entered. And we're going to right align them. All right. So this will be in the Home tab. Go to the alignment group and click on the one that allows you to align to the right hand side. There we go. Step 4, position the pointer on the bottom boundary of row heading 9. So we're going to be playing with the row heights. So we want to take row 9 selected, and we're going to move that pointer, drag it until we see 20.25. Or if you have really bad pulse like me, just right click on it, format cell, right click, row height, and then we're going to type 20.25. Right? Yes. All right, so that changed that row height a little bit so that it makes the entire text visible. And we want to next adjust the height of row 10 to 1725. So just right click on that row, go to row height, and enter 17.25. All right, there we go. Click cell C12 to deselect that range. All right, so we are done with that step. Next, we're going to start entering the varying interest rates on column C. So with cell C12 selected, select type 3.0%, right? 3% interest rate as our first number in the series. Press enter. Notice that I skipped a row. Did you notice that I skipped C11? I left that blank, and I'm going to explain why a little bit later. Next, in cell C13, so in the next one down, we're going to type 3.125%. Remember, we're using interest rates all the way from 3 to 4.25% with increments of 0.125%. Right, so I don't need to enter them all. Remember that Excel is smart this way. I can just go ahead and grab these two. And first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the number of decimal places. So let's increase that to 3. Right, in the number group in the Home tab, and then we're gonna select those two, and we're just gonna drag it all the way down to C22 until we see the 4.25%. Right, so just quickly inspect it. I'm gonna reduce the size of my worksheet just a little bit, zooming out just so that we can see the entire schedule on my screen. I'm going to do a little bit more so we can see the mortgage payment calculator as well. All right, there we go. So we have interest rates from 3% to 4.25%. I've already increased the number of decimals. The instruction says to 3 decimal places. So we are all good with those steps. Next, we're going to start entering our data table. So our next step will be to enter formulas for each of these columns, right? The monthly payment, the total interest, and the total cost. So we have several alternatives here. We can, number one, retype the formulas, which would be a lot of work. Two, I could go ahead and copy the formulas. So copy these three formulas here, F6, 7, and 8, respectively on this row, right? Just copy and paste. Or I could type in the monthly payment equals monthly payment, because that is the name that I assigned to that cell. And then do the same for the other two. Or even better, option or alternative number 4, I could just press the equal sign and type the name or the number of that cell, right? F6. So I'm gonna do that. And out of these 4 alternatives, this fourth alternative, just typing the cell number, F6 in this case, is the best, because Excel will automatically use the format that we had assigned to that cell F6. As you can see, F6, F7, and F8, all those 3 outputs have a currency format, right? And we want our answers in the data table to have the same format. So this fourth alternative is the best. If you enter the cell names, that would also work, but it will not copy the format. So move with your arrow to the right to enter the next one. In cell E11, we want to enter F7, so press the equal sign, type F7, and move to the right. And then in cell F11, we want to type equals F8. All right, press enter. So make sure that those numbers are correct: 2,963.1, 129,357.22, and 648,357.22. As you can see, what we've done is essentially we have copied those numbers, right? But now we have them one in each respective column. All right, so we are done with that step. Now we are ready to enter to define the range for our data table, right? So we're gonna select our range C10 to F22. So pay attention here. I am selecting that entire table, including my column C, where I have my varying levels of interest rate, and also row 11, where I have entered the 3 formulas. So now we're gonna start entering our data table. You're gonna go to the Data tab, and then under the Forecast group here, we're gonna click on What If Analysis. Click on that drop-down menu. The third option here is Data Table. All right, so select that data table, and here you have 2 options: row input cell or column input cell. Our instructions said we should use the column input cell field. Why? Because we have entered our inputs in a column, right? In column C, that's where we have the interest rates from 3 to 4.25%. But in here, I'm gonna refer to my original input cell, which is cell F4. So I'm gonna scroll up a little bit just so that I can see F4, and I can either type it or, even better, click on it. And as you can see, when I click on that cell F4, which is my interest rate of 3.875%, that was my original level in the interest rate, Excel has put the cell number F4 with a $sign in front of the F and a $sign in front of the 4, right? Quick reminder, what do those $signs mean? I'm just making that cell an absolute cell instead of a relative reference, right? An absolute reference, which means that that cell is not going to change when I copy that formula to other cells. That specific cell will remain the same. All right, so we're going to click OK, and look what Excel did. It just filled out my entire table. So what did I ask Excel to do here? I said, for each of those rows, go ahead and recalculate the monthly payment, the total interest rate, and the total cost for each of those interest rates. So Excel did it for the 3% at an interest rate of 3.125% and so on, and calculated all of those and put them nicely in a table. Now, next, I want to play with the format. As you can see, only the first row, the one we had entered manually, row 11, has that nice currency format, 2 decimal places. But everything else, all the other numbers that Excel generated, are not formatted. So I'm going to format them next. So our instructions, let's follow the instructions. It says apply the currency style with no currency symbol and the fourth format in the negative numbers list to the range D12 to F22. All right, so we just want to select D12 to F22, so all the numbers that are unformatted, and we can right click to display that shortcut menu, click on Format Cells, And then here in the number tab, we want to select currency. All right, we have 2 decimal places. Under symbol, let's put none. That's what the instructions ask us to do. And in the negative numbers list, we're going to select the 4th format, the one with the red font in parentheses. All right, click OK. All right, so the instructions ask us to do no currency symbol, no $, just because we have that $sign on the first row in row 11. So it's kind of obvious that all the other ones will have that value. And that's kind of a just a general convention. In a column, we just put the format on the first number, right? All right, so we are done with our table. Let me just give you some additional points or information about creating a data table. Number 1, all the formulas, right? All the columns, all the outputs in your data table. In our example, there were these 3 variables. They have to have a cell reference. So they all have to be linked to that input cell. In our example, that input cell was the interest rate, right? Cell F4. Second, you can have as many data tables that are active in your worksheet. Third, we can enter as many formulas as we want. This example was a 1 input data variable, so we only had 1 input, but we had 3 outputs, right? 3 variables. I can put more. If I wanted to add another variable, I would just add a column here in column G, add another title, and what I would have to do is I would have to select that entire range again and recreate the table. But we can put as many variables in adjacent columns as we want to. Also, if you wanted to delete a table, you would delete it just like you delete anything in Excel. I would just highlight that entire table and press delete, right? Don't do that. We want to keep that in there. All right, I'm going to undo that in the home button to have my table again, right? So I undid that delete step. I just wanted to show you what you wanted to do in case you made a mistake or you decided to just get rid of a table. Also, as I said, in this example, we're using a 1 input or 1 variable data table, but you can also have a 2 input or 2 variable data table. In our example, we could have used a 2 input data table by selecting the interest rate and maybe the term, right? The term of the loan. So that way I would have seen what happens to my variables when I change both the interest rate and the length of that loan. So we're going to make a pause here. This would be the last part of the first part of our video tutorial. In our second part, I'm going to start by showing you how to create the amortization schedule section of our worksheet. See you in the next video.